Hi guys, welcome to Knits Up. I am Knitter CNY, otherwise known as Mindy. You can find show notes over at knitsup.libsyn.com. There is a podcast group over on Ravelry. There's Facebook, Google, Plus, Plurk. I'm not really great with the social media or keeping up on it as much as I should be, but you're welcome to post over in the podcast group or wherever. I'll try and catch up with you. This week is kind of a catch up week for me. As some of you probably know, I was on vacation in California last week and the tail end of the week before. I was in the Anaheim and San Diego area, LA basically. That was a lot of fun. I may throw in some pictures, I may not. I was with other people, so it wasn't just me, and I don't want to post their pictures if they don't want them there. So I can give you, we'll talk about the trip, I guess, in what we'll call the additional portion of the podcast, sort of towards the end. So if you're not interested in the trip to California, you don't have to sit through all of that to get to the knitting part. What I brought with me was a lot of different projects, but I only got to one. I had thought I was going to do, I don't know why I brought four projects with me. It seemed like a good idea at the time. One of the things I ended up bringing is this yarn. This is the Aslan Trends Santa Fe. It's 100% merino wool. I have 3 skeins of this, and it's in what they call Tango Reds, and pardon the cat fur on it. That's a pretty good representation of what it looks like. It might be a little darker. I was thinking about that for the Live Oak Shawlette by Romy Hill. And let me find a picture of that for you, which is like that. It's very, very pretty. This is from, and this is the back of it. This is from a Knit Scene magazine from fall of 2011. It had originally called for Madeline Tosh sock, and the Madeline Tosh that I have is like really, I guess you'd call it variegated more than anything. It looks like that. And I don't think the pattern would be really terrific for that. I think it needs to be sort of a semi-solid. So I was looking at the Aslan Trends because it would be really pretty. And I'm thinking about doing that. So that may be the next shawl I cast on. The project I've been working on like crazy when I was home before I went on vacation was the Cherry Bomb sweater by Joan Michael McGowan. This is, let me find that. There's more of it now. There's more sleeve. See, more sleeve. I did the short rows class on Craftsy, that's a free class, and did my sleeve that way. It's a little wonky sort of down here because when I pick up stitches, the next round I knit into the back of the stitch to kind of cinch it up to, and that I think kind of was difficult with the short rows on here. But basically I'm not going to have to seam anything. And I've got almost 2.5 skeins of yarn left, so I'm going to have plenty to do a little bit longer sleeve, like maybe a 3/4 sleeve, or more than a short sleeve. The yarn that I'm using for that is Patents Grace, which is a 100% mercerized cotton, and I believe that's on, wait, I can tell you because it's on my Clover needles now. It's a US 5, that's a 3.75. I switched to the bamboo needles because I thought I'm going through security at the airport. I don't want to set anything off. So that's why I switched to that. I never did start the shawl. So the other project that I'm working on, which got a lot of work out in California and on the plane, was Bombshell. And that's by Stephanie Jappel. My version, right now you can't really tell what it looks like because it's all squished up on a needle. But it's a raglan. This is the top. It's a top-down raglan. And that's what the yarn looks like. It's got a little bit of sparkle, a little bit of shimmer in it. We'll let that focus. You kind of get a little bit of shimmer, but not a lot. And let me flip through Big Girl Knits to get you a picture of the sweater because it's really pretty. She does it in Lorna's Laces Lion and Lamb. That was what the version was. This is with the pearl side out, but basically there's some ribbing right there under the bust line. There's vertical darts that are under the bust line. It's going to have a nice, it's going to sit really nice on me because let's face it, I'm large chested. But this yarn is going to come out really good. The yarn that I'm using is Sensations Caribbean in the color number 14, which I would call like teals and blues. You can kind of see the sparkle in there. There's a little metallic thread. This is a number 4 worsted weight, and I've got 3 skeins of this. I haven't even broken into the second skein, and it's coming along pretty good. I'm using a size 6. Am I using a size 6? No. I don't know what I'm using. Let me look on my Ravelry page because that would tell me what size yarn and what size needle I am using. I am using a US size 6, which is a 4.0 millimeter needle. On my page it's called Caribbean Queen. And so that's what I've been working on. The Bombshell got quite a bit. That's basically the only project I did while I was away. And the project that I started before I left, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to drag this on a plane and work with wool in California, I just can't do it, was the February Lady Sweater. The February Lady Sweater is a free cardigan by Pamela Wynn. It is based on the Elizabeth Zimmerman Knitter's Almanac February Baby Cardigan project, which is, I happen to have it here. If you don't own this book, go buy this book. This book is $7. This is Elizabeth Zimmerman's Knitter's Almanac. It goes through, there's 12 projects, as you can see on here. They sort of have a shawl, sweaters, I think there's some Christmas decorations in here too. But the project for February, which I'm going to kind of show you, the pictures are not terrifically terrific. Wow. The pictures in this book are not terribly complicated. So I'm going to show you this way so I'm not picking up anything. That little jacket that's right there in the corner that you can barely see. And, aha, there you go. There's a close-up of the lace in the jacket. So that same lace pattern is in the February Lady jacket by Pamela Wynn. Pamela's pattern is free. However, she says go out and buy Elizabeth Zimmerman's book. I would recommend it. I think it's a great book for $7 for 12 projects, even if you do one. You might remember this book. I used it for the pie shawl that I had done, I think it was a year ago at least. The pie shawl looks like that. It's a shawl with concentric circles. It's absolutely fantastic. There's Norwegian mittens in here and blankets and all sorts of things. Baby leggings, socks. It's a great book. I really like her style because she does like sort of like a pattern and kind of meanders around, tells you a story, and then when you get to the end of the chapter, there's what they call pithy directions. She pretty much summarizes the pattern. If you're straight pattern and it's difficult for you to accept anything else, or if you're not comfortable with experimenting around, she might not be the person for you to start out with, but it does get better as you go along. That being said, the Pamela Wynn pattern assumes a couple of things. It assumes you know how to knit, and it assumes you know how to purl. I'm going to show you a couple of things. I'm going to actually link to YouTube videos because my camera skills are not terrific with shooting moving video. I could try and do it with the iTouch, but frankly, it would be difficult, if not impossible. What I'm going to show you, though, is how I marked my stitches. The February Lady Sweater, they tell you to use 8 markers and place the markers on either side of 4 marked stitches. And then they tell you to do increases. So that's well and good, but I always get my sides confused. Whether I'm doing a row that's an increase row or whether I'm just doing a straight knitting row. So one of the things that Elizabeth Zimmerman had talked about was if you have a ring marker, a locking ring marker or a safety pin type marker, you can actually mark the actual stitch and kind of ladder up as you go along. I'm going to try and show you this so you can see it. If it doesn't work out, don't blame me. Anyways, this is my February Lady Sweater. There are 4 markers here. 1, 2, 3, 4. As you can see, I'm starting to get almost like a right angle here because I'm increasing on either side of this marker. The reason I used these markers was on this side where the markers are, when I go across and I see these markers, that's my increase side. That's the side where I'm doing my increases. When I knit back, which would be this side without the markers, that's just my plain knit all the way across. There are buttonholes in this sweater. That's my first buttonhole. It kind of really sucks, but it's a buttonhole. It'll work. There's a 1-row buttonhole tutorial that I will try and link to. Is one that I used. A friend of mine is also working on this sweater, and she said to me, well, how do I do this buttonhole row? How do I do this? And I said, well, I have to watch the video every single time because it's something that I don't do all the time. So I'm on an increase row right now, and I'm coming to what will be my first marked stitch. And this is going to be interesting because you're going to kind of look at it and go, okay. So this is my first marked stitch. And I'll try and hold it that way. The first increase is go into the front, and you're not going to be able to see this, but go into that bar that's in between these two stitches, and then kind of stick it up on your needle and knit through the back. Then knit the mark stitch, which you can't really see anyways. So my mark stitch is the one with the locking ring marker. On the next increase, which is on the other side, I'm going to take that left hand needle, go through the back, going through the back, and then I twist it and knit through the front of that stitch that I've just created. I'll try and link to some videos. I'm thinking the way this goes is make one left, knit one, make one right, was I think the way that it went. But don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. So that's my advice so far is if you just have regular markers and you've done one on either side, what you can do is take a piece of yarn or a locking ring marker or something and mark the public side or the increase side of your work. So maybe just run a piece of yarn, through one of the stitches here and tie a little slip knot or something that you can cut that little piece of yarn off later, or use a locking ring marker, like through one of the little garter stitches or something like that. So you can tell what your right side and your wrong side are. So that'll make your life easier on the garter stitch section. So what I'm going to do is I will link to videos of what I think you should be seeing. But this is kind of what my February lady sweater looks like right now. It's not very exciting, but I'm starting to get increases here. So it'll go like this. It'll have buttons on it. It'll button. It's garter stitch until about there. And then there's the gull lace pattern. Somebody commented on the podcast group, and I can tell you who it is because there's a sticky thread over there for February Lady Sweater KAL. It was K Heart Quilt. She said, I cast on and I'm almost ready to start the eyelet increases. Can't find the gull lace pattern. The gull lace is described in words on page 1 of the pattern, I believe. Let me look that up. Let's try lady sweater, because that's how the PDF comes across, is lady sweater, and it's PDF. So at the bottom of the first page, it says stitch patterns, make one increases. They tell you how to do that. And then there's the second little bullet says adapted from Elizabeth Zimmerman's Knitting Almanac. And it tells you how many stitches. It's described in words. It's very small. You might not see it. You might want to highlight that part, but it's down near the bottom of the first page. Well, it's a lot of like abbreviations and stuff like that, and unless you've done lace before, you might be a little confused. What I did find was there is a blog post from Persistent Knitter, and she's done a chart for the gull lace pattern using something called Knit Visualizer. So she wrote out the pattern in words underneath, but then she also charted it, and the Knit Visualizer shows the chart. This entry was done February 5th, 2009, but over at the podcast group, I linked to this chart because I thought it would be helpful for you guys. I know it's going to be helpful for me because instead of flipping back and forth, I can just, print out that chart and be able to use it. I think it's going to be a lot easier to do that way. The stitch pattern is done over 7 stitches and 4 rows. So when you look at it, rows 2 and 4 both say purl 7 or whatever. You can just take that to mean on the wrong side rows purl all the way back across. If you're keeping the edge in garter stitch or whatever for whatever reason, let me look at the pattern a little bit, because I haven't gotten to the eyelet part. Eyelet increases, yarn overs, blah, blah, work. Continuing gull lace pattern. Okay, with garter edging at beginning and end of row. Garter edging. This right here, this is garter stitch. This is the same on both sides. This is knitting across. So when you get to the eyelet part, however many stitches they tell you to keep in garter stitch on the edge, that's what you're going to do. So let's see. Knit 3, knit buttonhole, work to end, repeat, blah, blah, blah. Yarn overs. Okay. The first and last blank number of stitches in each row will be knit in garter stitch for the button bands. That stitch count varies depending on the size of the garment that you're making. So make sure you read that part. It's the paragraph that's right before body separating for the sleeves. So make sure you read that. There are sections of this that you may want to use a highlighter for. But so the gull lace pattern on the wrong side rows, you're going to knit the edge, like say this was your button band and your first 10 stitches were garter stitch. This section here will continue to be garter stitch. The section that follows it will probably be the gull lace. So on your wrong side rows, you'll end up purling, you'll end up knitting the first so many stitches, purling all the way across. I'm purling, I get to the last whatever stitches, and I'm going to knit. So your edge all the way down will look like this. Your edge, like your button bands. And if I just confuse the heck out of you, just take my word for it. When we get there, we'll all get there together. Like I said, I've only knit this much. The garter stitch part is probably going to be the easiest part because all you do are, you're doing basically raglan increases, only instead of doing stockinette where you knit and purl, you're just doing knitting. I'm using 100% wool. You don't have to. I'm using 100% wool because I can block it out a lot easier. what I'm using is Motidia washable wool. This is a discontinued yarn. It is 100% merino superwash. This very exciting maize color I bought at the dollar store years ago. But it works. It's not flaky or anything like that. It's in good condition. I wish they still made this. It's a really nice yarn. It's got a lot of heft to it. It's a little bit thicker than the Patents Classic 100% merino wool, and it's a little bit more thick in diameter is the way I want to phrase it. So if you have any more questions, please post them over at the Ravelry group. Like I said, there's a sticky thread for the February lady sweater. There's some people that have never knit sweaters before. There's people that have knit 1,012 sweaters. But basically, I want to be able to do this as a KAL, a knit along, with the idea that if you have questions, if I can't answer them, somebody else might be able to. And if you've made a February lady sweater, could you do me a favor and post a picture of it? Please feel free to post your progress. If you just want to edit your post and make changes to it, that's fine. If you want to do multiple posts, that would be fine as well. It looks like it's going to be a good sweater for everybody. It's kind of a, like I said, it looks good on every body type that I've seen. So we'll see how it looks on me. So right now I have 3 sweaters going, and I'm crazy. So this would be the time in the podcast where I do the vacation / personal stuff.
I don't wanna go home. Don't bring the lights up, don't ring the bell once the whistle has blown. God only knows when we'll meet here again. Tell the band not to stop, tell the curtain don't drop. Keep the bar stroking high on his throne. I don't wanna go home. Don't wanna leave till it's all said and done. Guess I should have known.